Is that going to work?
Yep.
Oh, good.
All right.
This is the real thing, folks. We're going to start. We're about to begin. Welcome everybody who is here today. I am Alice's cousin, Betsy Rubin. Our mothers were sisters, and I had no siblings of my own, but Alice was my sister. And I feel so very grateful that I got to know her all her life. We had so much fun as children, even as adults. But I'm especially grateful for all that Alice did for my family. There were times that I struggled as a single mother. She helped my children with their education. And I think most of all, she was there for my mother, her Aunt Caroline, who had Alzheimer's. And Alice was there for her. So thank you, Alice, for all that you gave to me and to my family. And thank you for being such a joyful presence in our lives. Now, we're all here to celebrate our beloved Alice. Before we get going with the speakers, I wanted to mention a special thank you to Alice's chosen community of Jamaica, Vermont, and even farther to the rest of southern Vermont. People here, after Alice's tragic passing, have embraced Alice's wife, Chrissy. Oh yes, embraced the family with providing so much generosity, so much comfort, so much love. And this includes the nonprofit organization where Alice was working until the day that she passed, the Collaborative. But people are here from all over. We have people from all over Vermont. We have people from Massachusetts, Indiana, California, and there may be some other places that I've missed. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today for Alice and for Alice's wife, Chrissy, and the family. Really, all your words of comfort, your cards, your phone calls, all your acts of kindness mean the world to us. And I want to mention, those of you who are watching our live stream, you may be around the world. You might be in Ireland right now, and we thank you for being with us. Thank you so much. Now, we're going to hear today from about 10 speakers, and I am mostly going to introduce them just by name. So we'll hear from the speakers. After the 10 speakers, we're going to open the floor to people who are going to speak from the heart, who might just want to come up to the front and talk. The very first thing we're going to do though right now is we're going to hear some music. And I am very pleased to ask Terry Brockman to come up and play a piece that she and Alice both love. Terry is a longtime friend, and she's going to play a piece called Midnight on the Water.
Alice and I love playing music with Alice, and this was one of the songs that I loved playing when she had her violin, and we just jammed. Okay. See if I got it.
And now I'm very pleased to introduce Alice's big brother, Ted, Dr. Edward Abraham.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Long ago, Alice's first year of life was at Westover Drive in Washington, D.C. When she came home from the hospital, a committee around the family table had decided on her name. It was Alice June Abraham. Alice June Abraham didn't have any of the family baggage of the other children who had family names, so she was unique and lived up to her uniqueness. The family table had a history of contacts. Many generations were great-grandparents lived for many years at the family compound in Spring Lake, New Jersey, where George's parents and grandparents spent summer vacation. The table was made in Germany and had leaved carved men in the backs, and was and is still quite elegant. So this table has ties to the family history. Many things in terms of family decisions were made around the table. The genealogy of Alice goes back to her Swedish and German ancestors. Her great-grandfather came from Sweden in the 1800s and settled in North Dakota, was a state senator. She had, on the Abraham side, relatives in New York. One side of the family we call the shopkeepers. Her great uncle was one of the shopkeepers. And his partner, Isidore Strauss, started Abraham and Strauss in New York, later Macy's. So the other side, from which I come, and Alice was a scientist. And we had a number of women scientists. Alice is in my pedigree. Religiously, the roots were Protestant, but Judaism, and as a compromise, we were brought up as Unitarians. That brought many interesting guests to the table. Some of the people in the Washington area were colleagues of my father, Charles Mason, and his wife Hilda Mason, who functioned as a DC commissioner. She was the first African American. The rest was in Boston. Music was an integral part of Alice's upbringing. We had music in the family. For the generation before us, George and his siblings all played instruments. They had a family string quartet. Her uncle, Robin, went to Juilliard after serving in the Navy during World War II, and started a music conservatory in San Antonio, played with the San Antonio Symphony. Our immediate siblings played similarly in the string quartet, and Alice and all of us played in the DC Youth Symphony Orchestra, so that was a formative music education for Alice, which she developed greatly thereafter. The art, and much of it you see around the room, came mostly from my mother, Hilda, who taught children origami, so you can see that vestige here in some of Alice's creations. Hilda trained at Harvard in fine arts and was a docent for the National Collection of Fine Arts. So there's a lot of work in children's education and art in the Washington, D.C. area and nationally. Alice's radio stemmed from her father, our father, George, who, at Brown in 1936, started the first student-run college radio station, WBRU, which persists, and he also started the intercollegiate broadcasting. And so there were many conferences that were held around the table, the board of directors. So Alice met with many people who were important in the radio field and led to public radio. So that was a natural outgrowth of the family. And the table of conversations. There was also a lot of chaos around the table, many projects, and probably some classified documents that George Bachman was working on research. But that didn't stop documents. Just the documents. So you can't hear in the back, let me know, and raise hands, I'll try to talk louder. The menagerie of pets that surrounded the table, dogs, a blind runner named Duke, and various other pets. George's classmate, friend from Horace Mann was Ned Tucker, who had the major pet store in Washington, D.C., and when animals outgrew the pet store, they would come out to George on trial. One was a llama who came for 2 weeks and ended up staying a lifetime. The llama's name was Shasta, not for the mountains in California or the Native American tribe, but for the sovereign, which was something that Shasta revived routinely. We also had a parrot that Alice was responsible for naming Pompey. He would follow George around, sit on his shoulder, and periodically Pompey would let out George, which was basically either Alice or Hilda reprimanding George for some indiscretion. There were also various noises like which were shaving voice and voice from the bathroom. And summers initially were at Spring Lake. When that was sold in 1957, the family joined forces with George's youngest sister Jane and Oscar, her husband, and we began migrations yearly from Washington, D.C. in August to Popham Beach, Maine. And I spent most of our summers there with our cousins and have many fond memories of Popham. The interesting thing about Popham is that we've finally put down roots instead of renting. Alice picked out the location, which is something that Alice and her sister Anne was particularly important in the decision. And that location we still have in the family. It's the Popham Beach Place, but it's on the site of the first English colony here in the U.S. George Popham, who was the leader of the Popham colony, got his exploration started with a joint venture with his uncle, who was John Popham, the Chief Justice of the English court. But they invested in property in Ireland and Cork, and remnants of that started in Ireland and persists to this day. This is a road called Popham Road, which is where somebody in the room, Chris Healy, was initially from prior to coming to the Popham in North America. And just briefly, I worked with Alice on a number of projects, in particular with Sister Anne, disappearance. She and I worked to solve some unsolved links. There was work with the death of Jane, another archaeologist who had died under mysterious circumstances in Massachusetts, and we worked with the district attorney, and Alice supplied troves of documents. Ultimately got the DNA testing, which was in large part thanks to Alice' perseverance. So Alice had a sense of humor. She was a punsteress and carried that in life around the table. The good news is the table persists less than a mile from here, with the supervision of Chris. So that concludes my first half hour.
I do want to mention that Shasta the llama appears in the slideshow. So if you haven't seen him yet, you will soon find him. Our next speaker is Lisa Scott. Chris gave me Alice's scarf this morning. Oh, I honor her by. This is a great turnout. So my name is Lisa Scott, and I grew up with the Abrahams 4 houses down. I was dear friends with Ann Abraham, who was my age. Alice was 6 years younger. But Alice and I became quite close after she went to college and came of her own. So Chris asked me to speak a bit about when Alice was 15 years old. But before I do that, I'm going to just give a minute or two to the Abraham family. I shared all kinds of experiences with them from art projects. Hilda, the mom, was always in with the girls doing art projects when I would knock on the door and open it up and be greeted with, "George! George!" Pomegranate, the parrot was there, and you were never alone in the Abraham house. We would go out and play with frogs in the window grills. Frogs were a very Ann thing, which Alice took over and loved very dearly. One time we all packed into the Abraham's VW van. And I'm not sure if you were along then, but you might remember this. So there was Ted, Dorothy, Ann, Alice, me, Shasta, and Duke, the large dog. And we made a trip out to Harper's Ferry, which is quite a haul, all of us in the van. When we got out there, George pulls up to this haunted house where we were going to spend the weekend next to a cemetery. This is a typical Abraham experience. Alice was she grew up in a loving family. Everyone loved each other. They had fun, adventure. One other thing that Anne showed me on the 4th of July, the best spot in the city to overlook the National Mall fireworks. And that was to climb out Ted's bedroom window onto the roof. And you could see National Airport, which is now Reagan Airport. You see the whole mall. And we would just sit out there and watch the fireworks. It was just glorious. Anyhow, the Abrahams, they all loved each other. Alice was watching all of this as we grew up. She wasn't quite involved, but she certainly learned how to do puns and do her tricks and have a lot of fun from her family. But when Alice was 15 years old, her 19-year-old sister, Anne, she tragically disappeared during an archaeological fieldwork in Labrador. Alice and I grew close after they had passed on. Chris asked me to speak about that. Because 30 years after the fact, Alice was unreconciled to this loss. Alice traveled with 3 loved ones. I was lucky enough to be one of them, to the land where Anne disappeared. Why was Labrador so special to Anne? Why did she want to return there to find out why Anne had returned summer after summer to this land? Alice wanted to see the place and to say hello and to say I miss you. To have a little party, a whole private service for it. So we held a service. We took the trip up, and it took us about 10 days to get up to Rama Bay. And we found the Ramachurk quarry that Anne had been searching for a number of summers. We had a little party there and a private service.
Over the 2 weeks, we experienced the raw beauty of the unforgiving terrain. Its rugged outposts existing in a world where natural forces precedence over human notions of time and space. Throughout the trip, Alice's trauma of losing Anne diminished. Could see it. A sort of peace settled in. I'm not sure she ever reconciled to the loss. I don't think we'll ever reconcile to her, to Alice's loss. So, I'm reminded of the Abraham family spirit, their strength, their enthusiasm, and the devotion that they give to life, and loving to the fullest. Alice loved so deeply. Her generous heart always held her close to her tightly. Alice unique and so creative, devoted, full of life. Rest in peace.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I just want to take a moment to point out that on this board, you can see some of the photos from Alice and Chris's trip, along with Lisa and another friend, Stephen, their trip to Labrador. So later, when we're done with the speakers, I invite you all to take a look and see. Thank you again, and our next speaker is going to be Brian Bell.
Thank you, Betsy. Betsy's very organized about this because I probably have known Alice. Well, I first met Alice in 1991 when she was first at WGBH. She was a secretary for Morning Pro Musica, and so she had to deal with Robert J. Lloyd's mom. And it was quite a menagerie of strong personalities and what have you. And she was a real beacon of sanity there, and she was extremely well organized and kept that ship rolling when chaos seemed to be the rule of the day. It wasn't very long before she was promoted to music librarian at WGBH. And as such, she was overseeing what became the largest music collection in New England that wasn't at a college. And she had not only curated CDs, but there were thousands of LPs that had survived the WGBH fire on Massachusetts Avenue in 1962. And there was also, when WGBH took over the Boston Commercial Classical Station, WCRB, there was a joining together of the two CD collections. And she was meticulous. There was never a duplicate disc around. She would make sure that everything that we had, which was of value, that was unique, was kept. And took great pride in that, but if there was something that was just the same old disc in two copies, she made sure that the shelf space was there for them. Now, the reason I came here is because you know very well that Alice loved Jamaica, Vermont. She was very happy in Jamaica, Vermont. She had a heart of gold, brought her life to serving others, and I saw a side of her that I think probably those of you here in Jamaica, Vermont may not have had the need to see. Because when Harvard decided that they needed more room for their business school, they kicked our studios off of Western Avenue, and so WGBH had to build new studios. And their eyes got a little bigger than their proverbial stomach. budget-wise in terms of new headquarters. And so they built this palace on, off of Mass Pike on Guest Street and couldn't even begin to pay for it. There was, within 6 months of completion of this building, there was talk of them not making payroll. This is back in 2008. And people came on to management from the board of trustees that they decided that the union contract that we had all assigned to over many years was no longer any good. Now, Alice was on the negotiating committee for the Communication Workers in America. And so she was kind of the lead, she was the lead speaker, even though that she may have had, another title or so. But she was the lead speaker in order to protect the rights of the GBH talented producers and hosts and production work and what have you. She made it tough. She was nails. There was, I don't know how many last and final contracts that they presented to us, but she made sure that these contracts really dealt with the needs that were being addressed for the talented people at the station would be addressed. Well, one day they decided that they had enough and they walked her out of the building. They walked her out of the building, which is, if you're familiar with the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act, is a violation of federal law. But yes, they walked her out of the building. And she never regretted it. She went to the National Union and filed a complaint, which she eventually won. And kind of this testament to my friendship with her and knowing what she did. I was the only current employee to testify on her behalf. And of course she won that too. They couldn't touch me for a year, but a year and 3 days later, I was shown the door because of financial difficulties. I've done okay, very well since then, but I testified to you that the glory days of GBH were over when Alice was locked out of that building. And it's something of a testament to the love and admiration and respect that Alice had. I will tell you that in the service in Waltham, the person who walked her out of that building was there. I don't think Alice, would have thought about that, but yes, she was there. And I was a little bit surprised, but I thought, I think, perhaps in her way, I think she was kind of asking forgiveness. It all kind of reminds me of something Mark Twain wrote, and when I first read it, I laughed so hard, and I thought, when I stopped laughing, I thought, well, maybe this is a way of living, and it always brings to mind Alice. He writes at the beginning of chapter 6 of Quickenhead Wilson's calendar, "Let us endeavor so to live, so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry." About origami, when I was let go, Alice provided me with an origami, which I still have on my dresser. She was, as you know, I'm in the Wind and Orchestra. She played. She recruited me for the Parkway Concert Orchestra. She was assistant concertmaster of the Parkway Concert Orchestra, and she talked me into, joining the conducting staff of the Parkway Conducting Orchestra. I'm still there, and one of the things that Alice did was that there was an Irish tune that is very, very dear to Chris's heart, "Winds of the Swallow," and what Alice did was make an arrangement for voice and orchestra of "Wings of the Swallow." And I knew of this arrangement, and which we have sitting in the Parkway Library. And in March of 2020, I was set to perform it for an Irish night, and had it all rehearsed and ready to go, and the pandemic hit. So I never got to perform it. Hopefully I'll get a chance sometime soon, Chris. But we have here the first performance of the Parkway Concert Orchestra performing Wings of the Swallow. Thank you.
This next piece, no one's ever heard before in performance in this arrangement. It was arranged for today's concert by violins and our own orchestra and singing. It's about somebody near and dear to her. It tells the story of somebody who had the courage to leave everything that had known in search of a better life. I think that probably is true to a lot of people in this room, if not you specifically, that your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. To present Alexander Hampson's Wings of the Swallow, we invited a good friend of mine from New York City to be our soprano. Her name is Maria Masciano DeCarlo. I'd like to come you and help me know her, please.
Brian Bell, for all your words about Alice and the great work that she did at WGBH, both as a music librarian and as a fighter for labor rights. This piece that Brian introduced is just an example of some of Alice's other work. Alice got a bachelor's degree from Bennington College here in Vermont. I think that's when she first fell in love with Vermont. And her degree was in music and composition. So Alice actually composed a lot of music, including a piece called Keiru, which means frog in Japanese. And this was dedicated to her sister Anne, the one that you've heard about, who was lost in Labrador. We're not playing that for you today, but we're hoping eventually to be able to get that up in the cloud so others can listen to it. I do want to mention also that in addition to Alice's bachelor's degree in music, she got a master's in library science from Simmons College in Boston. And she became then a music librarian. So I just wanted to mention that. But now we're going to move up to Vermont. And I would like to come much closer to the present and introduce Marianne Morris and Victoria Silsby of the Collaborative, the nonprofit where Alice worked until her untimely passing. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Marianne Morris, Executive Director of the Collaborative. If you don't know much about the Collaborative, it's only because Alice hasn't found you to talk about it yet. And rest assured, she would have given the opportunity. Alice became an integral part of the Collaborative just about 10 years ago when she started working for us, and she's just enriched our programming and our group in so many ways since then. You know, I listened the other week for all the tributes, and everybody talks about her skills with work, and there's tributes and highlights of all these incredible skills that she's brought to work, and she's all of those things. An excellent project manager, consistently demonstrating creativity and organization and dependability. She helped to also empower other people around her in that same type of work ethic, which was great for us, of course, as a team. She has this exceptional spatial reasoning, which you guys have heard so much about already. She's able to see those solutions and pathways that many of us might not be able to. And that particular talent was proven again and again, whether troubleshooting strategies or literally finding where people would be sitting in our open concept office. And I was reminded of this just yesterday because I picked up the yardstick that sat on her windowsill. It's kind of the only measuring tool in her whole office. And there was just so many times where we'd be sitting around going, well, what if that could go there? And I don't know if that would fit. And she'd say, oh yeah, that'll work, or it wouldn't. And then we'd prove it with the yardstick, and she was pretty much always right. But besides just the tasks of everyday work, we're at the Collaborative, we're really rooted in our value system. And Alice didn't just understand those values, but she really helped to create and shape them as we revisit them year over year. And also, she went on to live them through every aspect of that work. One of the Collaborative's values is that all kids are inherently good. And she really leaned into that right away and would lend a hand in the after-school program, signed up to be a mentor for not just one, but a couple of different kids over the many years that she was a mentor. Another one of our values is that there's fundamental value, dignity in all individuals. It's kind of like one of our equity values. And Alice helped to guide our team through discussions and trainings and share those things out into the rest of the world. She managed retreat topics and activities and helped to craft our public statements on this topic. And the evidence of some of her work, you should be using those fans, by the way, it's a little warm in here, is in the fans that are available at the front. Thank you. There you go. She really embodied that belief of a fundamental value and dignity of all individuals. And she promoted and provided educational resources, materials and trainings on this topic throughout Southern Vermont. regularly, our go-to person. She also always ensured that our resources, this is one of our values, our resources will be available to all. And she did so in such a way that she would drive miles out of her way to make sure that the right person had the right things to do the right project at the right time. Such dedication. While Alice was really highly valuable and capable and valued for her organizational skills, it was really in doing the work with our values that she really shone and brought transformational change, not just to us within our organization, but into our communities that we're living in. At the Collaborative, we really talk about the value of connection, the importance, the belief that when individuals feel connected, less isolated, feel a sense of belonging, but they're less likely to engage in risky behaviors that will cause them harm and others harms in the community. And she was really a connector for a lot of different things. She had an ability to bring together people and ideas in a way that put the right person in front of the right person at the right time, no matter what the pathway that you couldn't see yourself. She intuitively understood how to see that. An example is she collected the Collaborative town when it was the Vermont Reads program this year, and we were being asked to help that Vermont Reads project be expanded into schools. She provided us, and Madeline provided us with enough books to make that happen. And then later on, when we had some funds to distribute locally, she connected us to Madeline again so that we could give the library some funds in return. Another great example of her connection was Sally, who works for us now, was mentoring our program and worked with Alice a bit. And when Sally's making her decision to work at the Collaborative, which we're so grateful for, and a real bonus of that was that Alice was there and that she could be able to get to know this amazing person so much closer and in those areas. So she was a role model, not only in that kind of dedication and commitment, but also in that quiet strength. And these really impressive capabilities are great, but she was also deeply open. And so that story about Anne really touched me because it's one of the things that she's so open and willing to be able to share that story, that it has opened up pathways for other people to share their stories too, which is a really deeply impactful thing for me, for people to be given permission to share their authentic self. She invites people to show up as themselves, as their full selves, authentically, and to share their stories also. And yet, even with all of that serious commitment and skill behind all of that, she brought a sense of whimsy and joy, which I know that you all know about, to the position and to our office and to our lives, even through challenging moments. And Alice will be profoundly missed at the Collaborative, and her spirit continues to resonate with us. But not just when we plan events or distribute materials or edit a press release, but if an opportunity for a fun arises, I'm positive that somebody else on the staff will be stepping in to fill that role. And I'm hand it to Victoria.
Dearest friends, hello, my name is Victoria, and I've been asked to share a few words, 2 pages, in Alice's memory as one of her coworkers, and more so as one of her friends. Alice and I first met when she interviewed for the project manager position of a project some 9 or so years ago. And even in that first meeting, her quiet authenticity stood out. When she joined our community, it wasn't just her thoughtful nature or quick wit, always faced with a perfectly timed pun that made an impression, but the way she made people feel at ease. Alice had a calm, steady presence that grounded those around her. She had a way of noticing what needed to be done, offering a kind word, or bringing clarity to chaos. I think someone earlier said that and it stole my line. And doing it without fanfare. She didn't seek attention, and she just made things better simply by being there. Alice had a gift for noticing what others missed, little details, loose ends, quiet needs, and tending to them without ever needing or asking for recognition. She brought a steady, grounding presence to everything she was a part of, not by taking center stage, but by showing up fully, reliably, again and again. We used to joke that we were Thelma and Louise, a nickname born from all the hours we spent carpooling together to who knows where. Alice was always behind the wheel, confident and calm, following the route to the letter, though her Boston driving roots never quite left her. Those car rides became kind of a ritual, full of laughter, deep conversations, and the kind of trust that only comes from true friendship. Alice was also a gentle guide, someone who met you where you were, without judgment. Just being around her made you feel more grounded, more understood. She listened deeply, offered her full attention, and created a kind of space that made people feel safe and seen. Her presence had a way of reminding you to slow down, breathe, be a little kinder with yourself and with others. One of my fondest memories of Alice's selflessness was when she helped me retrieve my car from a repair shop in Gorham, Maine. Without hesitation, she said, "Okay, what time do I pick you up?" She pushed aside her Saturday plans, made a one-way 4.5-hour drive with me, and never asked for anything in return. During the trip, we talked about politics, detailed work projects, and her joy in playing the violin, her true happy place, or one of her many true happy places. A treasured memory is watching Alice perform in one of her many concerts. She sat intently, concentration etched across her face, and yet there was a gleeful lightness about her, as if to say, "This is the rhythm of my soul." Holding her dear sister's violin, she shared her rare and beautiful talent with the audience. That was Alice, willing to share her authentic self and her passion with grace. Alice and her wife, Chris, brought more than laughter into our lives. They brought cards, chips, and a whole lot of heart. Around our kitchen tables, with music, conversation, and lots of food, Alice, my late husband, and I learned the art of poker under Chris's keen and skilled knowledge. I really don't know where Chris gets that skill from. And if anyone asks, I'm not telling. Hang on, I'm shaking. With Alice's quick wit, what began as a few awkward hands turned into games full of teasing, storytelling, and the kind of enduring friendship you never forget. Alice embraced my husband and I fully and reminded us that it's never too late to learn something new or to feel like you truly belong. In every small kindness, every thoughtful gesture, and every quiet moment, Alice left her mark. She didn't need the spotlight, she simply lived with depth, intention, and generosity. She gave her time, her heart, and her humor freely, and we are all better for having known her. Though her absence is deeply felt, her presence remains. And in the stories that we tell, the music that we hear, the laughter at our kitchen tables, and the quiet strength she taught us all to carry. Thank you, Alice, for your unwavering friendship, for showing us what it means to truly listen, and for reminding us that real connection often lives in the small, quiet moments. Alice, you will always be remembered with love and with gratitude.
Thank you so much to Mary Ann and to Victoria. And I think that there's so many themes. Everyone has known Alice in a different way, but we all know the same Alice. And one of the themes that came up was something that Ted started talking about, the table, sitting around the table together. And Victoria mentioned that also. And Alice did have a way, along with Chris, of bringing people together around the table. Someone else who has sat at the table with Alice is Karen Amadin, and I'd like to ask you, Karen, to come up and speak.
Alice was a dear and wonderful friend who I worked with at the Jamaica History Museum. And we were great friends there. Alice was an important part of our organization, and if you go into the building, there's a little of Alice in every corner, every display. I'm the person who collects the acquisitions and researches them, and I tend to make a little chaos around me. Alice was always there to clean up, as Luke can remember it, and others here. Alice was always picking up after me. We're deeply feeling her loss in the museum. She was instrumental in our success and the operation of the museum and Jamaica Day and all the other things that we do. We're going to miss her at all of our events and meals at my house and gatherings. I have a garden party happening in 3 weeks or so at my house. And Alice and Chris are always there and always loving the food, the pavlova and the different cookies and cakes. And Alice and Chris are great friends. We're going to miss that with Alice. When we owned the store, Alice always looked forward to the pumpkin bars each fall. And the ginger cookies. And there's a big ginger cookie over there. And every year we would make a ginger cookie, one for Alice and one for Chris. And we'll still make them. Alice and Chris went with me to the March on Washington in 2017. We organized a bus from Jamaica, and we all went down and had a grand old time marching on Washington. And many conversations and things afterward. Alice and Chris, they loved their boys and their wives. And Alice would talk about them all the time, just love them. And other family and friends. Friends and family were always coming and going from their house. And then Alice and Chris in the past couple of years have been able to experience 2 daughters with Madeline and Vera. And they have been just wonderful. Alice and Chris thought of them as daughters, and Vera and Madeline all the time were saying they're like our moms, our other moms.
her loss hits a small town like Jamaica very hard. We have about 1,000 residents here. And everybody knows everyone. And one person can make a huge difference. And Alice volunteered a lot. So, as we think about Alice from now on, Alice loved daffodils. And we're going to try planting some daffodils in the village. So next spring, we'll see lots of yellow daffodils coming up, and think of Alice. So try to plant a few extra daffodils in your yard this year. And wear a little purple. She loved purple. And eat a ginger cookie every once in a while. And volunteer and make a difference. Because that is the best way to keep Alice's memory alive. And try to be a little more witty. Think of a pun every once in a while. Once in a while, I'd be able to throw one in and she would laugh, but she was just always coming up with puns. And we would all either laugh or roll our eyes at her. And they just kept coming. But thank you all for coming. This is wonderful. And a great tribute to Alice. I've been doing my best to come up with puns, but I'm lucky if I get one a day when Alice could just spin out 10 at a time. All right, well, earlier at the very beginning, you heard Terry Brockman. Some of you, if you knew her many years ago, she was Terry Bogan, but she's now Terry Brockman. She played for us, but it's not, she just wasn't playing. She has known Alice for many, many years, and she's going to come up now and speak a little bit about their friendship and about what she knew about Alice.
My pleasure and honor. I'm glad I'm able to get up here and talk, because usually I'm private. Because I just am thinking, she just brightens any room, any memory. I have so many fun, frolicking times with Alice, and, you know, deep conversations, fun conversations. The last time that I saw Alice and Chrissy, I had, I'll work backwards. Speaking for 2 years ago, almost to the day, it was August 2023. I retired after teaching in Los Angeles Unified Elementary Music. I was a music teacher. And I retired from there. And instead of like calling it retiring, I learned I'm going to call it rewiring. So that's what I'm doing. And now I'm teaching part-time ukulele to kids so that they can sing songs about what they're learning in their classroom. And Alice is always an inspiration to me. But my husband Les and I had planned a trip to come and see our buddy girls, Alice and Chrissy. And what I knew of this trip in planning it was I couldn't wait, but I'm excited. We're going to go to see Alice and Chris in the Vermont house. And when we arrive, we'll spend the night, and then we'll get on the road to go to Palm Beach, Maine. And I knew that. And I had been to the Palm Beach house before, so I was anticipating that. And so we drove up there the 4 hours. And speaking of around the table, there we were, like phase 10. I'm not a card player, but I learned a new game. And Alice and Chrissy and Les and I were around the table. It was pouring rain. And we were there for a while playing. The rain stopped and started to clear up. And we were still playing. And Alice just, you know, Alice casually just goes, oh, I think I see our new neighbors walking their dog. Two ladies walking the dog. And she excused herself from the table. She goes, I'm just going to go make them feel welcome. I'm just going to go say hello. So she got up from the table, and we're sitting there. Next thing we know, she's inviting them in. So we get up, and Oh, I forgot to tell you, these two ladies, and it was no surprise to me, I figured, there are bugs and there's mosquitoes out in the summertime, so these two ladies walking the dog had hats and nets over them. And Alice invites them in, and we get up and she's introducing us, and before I could say anything, one of them comes up to me and she goes, "Hi," she shook my hand, she said, "Where are you from?" And I started to tell her, "California," and she took the net up and I go, "Karen!" She brought, Alice invited two dear friends of mine. I worked with them, I'm a music therapist also, that's what brought me to Boston. So she totally surprised me. And Alice, Karen and Donna, also were friends of Alice and Chris. So it was amazing. Karen brought her kayak. She brought two kayaks because we used to do that in Boston. So we went out kayaking near in a lake. I forget the lake's name, but it was near Papa Beach. But you know what? She just once again, just brought joy and fun and memories, and I'll never forget them. Backing up, I met Alice first at WGBH in the same year, I believe, 1991. So when I had multiple jobs, I was working as a music therapist in many places and teaching piano and playing piano in different places. So I had some time in my afternoon, and where I lived, our neighbors below us, two ladies who lived in an apartment below us, we all had a gathering to get to know each other when we moved in. I was living with a friend of mine. And one of them worked at WGBH, and I always loved that station. I always listened to it. Ron De La Chiesa, Music America. And I was, thinking in my head, I have a block of time. I want to do something good. I love being in Boston. I love this place. And so I was chatting with her, and she said, "Why don't you know what you could do? You could be a volunteer. And since you're a musician, you can volunteer in the music library." And I go, ding. And so I did. Long story short, I started working in there. Alice was not in the library at that point. Somebody else was. I just got assigned. I was happy to be there, very happy. But I didn't know anybody, and I just knew, okay, go back there and enter data in the computer from the CDs. I was delighted to do that, but no chatting, just I'm in my environment. And then a few weeks later is when Alice started. I was working back there. Alice came back to me, and she said, "You must be Terry." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Hi, I'm Alice. I'm the new librarian." Right away, her warmth, introducing herself like that and identifying me. And next thing she said, we were chatting a bit, and she said, "Has anyone ever given you a tour of the whole WGBH, the radio TV?" I said, "No." She said, "What? How can you know where you are if you don't know where you are?" So she took me around, and I was delighted. I just felt at home, and I felt like I have someone who cares, and boy, did she care. And what a joy to work with her. She's a blast to work with, and she worked. And as Brian said, she was ready. Whenever you needed something, I was there when people would come from the radio and TV, come in and say, "Alice, do you have any music? I need this for this spot, or this, blah, 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 whatever I need." She was on it, and she produced it instantly, and she gave me the job, which I loved. She said, "Terry, I need some." We were crewing a lot of music from around the world on CDs, and she said, and we got new bookshelves. And she said, "Oh, we got to have a world music section. Terry, you could be in charge of that." I said, "Yeah, I like that." So I started that, and I put a world map up there, and was making shelves and titles of, there's Ghana, there's Bali, and I have that map because when Alice left GBH, she rescued that map, and I have that nice souvenir. Gosh. Alice, I'm so proud of her. I'm so comfortable with her, and I don't want to repeat everything we've heard. You all said so beautifully. It's true, and I'm going to just add what I can to that. I love playing music with her. She was so much fun. We did a lot of meeting. Other musicians just brought whatever they had: recorders, guitars, string instruments of different kinds, and Alice, of course. And we would just play contra dance music. And we had a couple of events with that too, which was a lot of fun. And just, every time you repeat that, you do it up a little differently and add your things to it. And we just had lots of fun together and lots of fun parties at the Jamaica Plain House, and with all kinds of people and all kinds of fun and memories. I've tried so many times to write down stuff to say, but I said, I can't. I keep going, there's like too much, there's so much I could say. And I also want to tell you that I thought I was going to be moving back where all my family was, in California, where I was raised. And so I planned this. I planned 2 years. Good, I get a good dose of my family. I'm going to go to UCLA and study film scoring, which I did. And that was in 2000. And then little did I know, first of all, I met Les, but I didn't know that he was the one. So, but that was he was in my life. And the big thing was 9/11 happened, and I kept asking those hard questions of, could I be 3,000 miles away when my family was all out here, and who knows what this brings to our world now. And I also discovered that I love writing music and hearing it with an orchestra playing. It's such a thrill and an amazing thing. I am not cut out to do that for a living. I'm too social, and because you have to be a hermit a little bit to write and then and yes or no, yes, okay, that I realized that's not me. So I had to decide. I went to finish my teaching credential, and that's what I did. But Alice helped me with the big move. And there's one more story, and I'll end with this, but I moved back in the millennium, 2000, on January 5th. But that last month that I got to live in Jamaica Plain House with Alice and Chris. I was real busy that month playing piano gigs, and in between that, we were decorating the Christmas tree, and we just had a blast. Lots of good conversation, fun and things. And one time we were decorating the Christmas tree. And Alice has all these, Alice and Chris both have these beautiful collections of decorations. And I was helping them decorate. I'm on one side of the tree, Alice is on the other side. And we're just putting them up. And at one point, we couldn't see each other because the tree was there. So I said, hey! And Alice peeked over, she goes, what? I go, he cussed at me. And she said, what? Showed her little nutcracker. He's a cussing nutcracker. He didn't have to say anything out loud, but I just made his mouth move, and he went. And I said, stop it. So we had this tradition, and it continues. Every Christmas I come out with the cussing nutcracker. And at that surprise in Maine, Alice presented me with a tissue wrapped gift. She said, you have to open it now. And I opened it up, and it's a nutcracker. It's about this big, and he's at home still on our fireplace mantle. So just for old times sake. Words can't explain what I feel. I am really, really grateful to know Alice and Chrissy. I knew Alice before I knew her when she met Chrissy. And I knew the joy that sparked. And that's exciting. And that also added to my world because now I have all of you, the family of Chrissy and friends and Alice and all of us continuing to build and be around that table together, you know. There are lots of tables in here. And thank you, Alice, for everything. That'll be endless thanks, you know. And thank you, beautiful family, really. Thank you.
Just quickly picking up on a couple of things. One thing that Terry mentioned was Alice helping her move. And I am wondering how many people in this audience or among us gathered here today got help from Alice with moving, downsizing, organizing an office or a space. Raise your hand if Alice helped you with any of these things. Okay, I could probably, if I had 10 hands, I'd be raising 10. I do want to say another thing that Terry mentioned was the love and joy that Chrissy and Alice shared. This was a constant source of inspiration, including for my daughter Holly. She said their marriage, their relationship showed her what true love is. But on the subject of daughters, although Alice did not have any daughters, she did have 2 daughters. And I would like to introduce Vera Schoaf and Madeline Helser.
Hello. I'm Vera, this is my Madeline, and we're the girls. We live in our reconverted school bus behind Alice and Chris's house. I feel incredibly lucky to have known Alice. And I know anybody who knew her feels the same. From her boundless generosity to her puns for every occasion, she never missed an opportunity to make me smile. My favorite memory of Alice is when she gave us the pride flags to put up around town. I saw her the next day on the back porch, and as I was walking past, she said how nice it was to see the flags up. I told her that we were worried that it might have been getting tangled, and she said with reassurance, as her arms spread wide, that they were blowing beautifully in the wind. We spent a lot of time with Alice and Chris. We went to them for comfort, for guidance, for friendship. They even took us to a drag queen bingo night in Bennington. And if I remember correctly, they both won that night. As the event was coming to a close, the drag queens came out to the crowd and was dancing with everyone. Alice got up and danced, and then Chris got up and danced with Alice. It was such a happy moment between them. Madeline and I will never forget the example of their love and will always use it as a guide for our own relationship. Alice will be deeply missed, but she lives on in all of us. In our memories and in the stories of her and in the love she gave so freely. Thank you, Alice, for everything you did for us. And thank you, Chris, for everything you're doing. We love you. Here's your album.
I spoke at the last one, so I'm going to keep it brief this time. Alice and Chris are really like mothers to us. Everybody in Jamaica welcomed us so open-heartedly when we first came. You know, we stayed with Jamar and Christina, and they just like welcomed us in, and we were right across the street from Alice and Chris, and so it just felt like we were totally enveloped in love from all sides, and it just hasn't stopped. It's just been so wonderful. But I found this poem. I was adding books to the library the other day, and it just opened to this poem I feel like I wanted to read it. Watch the sunset. Notice how the light goes away slowly, then all at once. Notice how the sky changes from golden to blue to black. Watch the sunrise. Notice how the light appears slowly, then all at once. Notice how the sky changes from black to blue to golden. This is how it's meant to be. The light is meant to come and go, but never to leave entirely. And Alice is that light for everyone.
Thank you so much to Vera and Madeline. And I can just say, since I've been here the last few weeks, I live in Chicago, but I've been staying here. I've had the opportunity to see firsthand not only what Alice and Chris have done for Vera and Madeline, but what Vera and Madeline have done for Alice and Chris. And the generosity of their labors and their companionship, their love is boundless. And so much of what you see around here today, the flowers, were chosen and arranged by Madeline. The tech was put together by Vera and Madeline. The tables were put up by Vera and Madeline. So these are just a few examples. So thank you to you both. At this point, what we're going to do is give people the opportunity to get up and share a few words. If we haven't called your name and you'd like to share a few words, we'd ask you to keep it, relatively short. But we know you have something important to say, so please come and say it. And I think I saw Jonathan raising his hand. I'm not going to know everybody, so I'll ask everyone else to introduce themselves. So here's Jonathan.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan West, and I'm here with my husband Thomas and two of my four kiddos, Gracie and Charlotte. We've known Alice for the better part of the past decade, when she, like so many times in her journey, stepped in at a moment of need for our family after trying to manage the transition back to civilian life after 5 years in the military. Overwhelmed, we made the difficult decision to find a new home for one of our dogs. Thanks to our fairy dog mother, Victoria, our energetic and quirky golden doodle, Jackson, or JJ, as we called him, found two amazing moms in Alice and Chris. We were so thankful for Alice's love for JJ. And I can't help but believe that Alice planned every inch of JJ's journey across a perfectly orchestrated rainbow bridge earlier this week. Both can now be together once more. Chris, thank you for allowing us to say goodbye to our goofy boy. And on a day like today, it's hard to not feel the magic of this place we live in called Vermont. The sun is shining through the maples. The breeze carries a melody that feels both familiar and sacred. And the hills, quiet, strong, enduring, remind us of the kind of beauty that doesn't shout, it simply is. That's the kind of strength that Alice carried. This morning, as I drove towards Montpelier from Manchester to meet with other advocates from around the state, I felt a deep pull. I had made the difficult decision not to be present for today's beautiful celebration in its entirety. And yet, I don't think Alice would have minded. In fact, I think she would have understood. She would have given me that quiet nod of permission she offered so many of us when we were trying to do what we felt was right, even when it wasn't easy. And as I rounded that corner into the city of Montpelier, and I caught my first glimpse of the State House, where Alice advocated for those among us with less. With the golden dome glowing against the backdrop of green, I felt her there with me. That golden dome, tucked humbly against the hillside, is more than a symbol. Alice knew it was a beacon. It was a promise. It holds the hopes and dreams of those who came before us and the tireless activism of those who still believe we can create a better world. Alice was one of those people. She believed with her whole being. She didn't just fight for what was right, she lived it. She lifted people up, often when they didn't know they needed lifting, and sometimes when they didn't think they deserved it. I know my own family wouldn't be what it is today without her. She stepped up, she stood by us. She helped carry us through a moment of deep need. And she did so not for recognition, but because that's who she was. Steadfast, principled, full of grace. And today the sun is shining brightly. The wind is playing Alice's songs. The trees are whispering her stories. And though our hearts ache, they are also full of her love, her example, and her strength. Vermont was lucky to have her. We were all lucky to have her. So thank you, Alice. And may we all continue our journeys with the strength and the permission she has given us all. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come and say anything? Oh, yes, please come up and please introduce yourself.
My name is Natalie, and I had the honor of working with Alice at the Collective. And I just want to share a few quick stories of how, whether she knew it or not, she changed the trajectory of my family. I am a person living in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. I have 7 years of sobriety. And Alice was so supportive of that, so supportive. And Mary Ann alluded to this earlier about Alice giving permission for other people to share their stories. And so part of the program that I run is a substance misuse prevention program, 400 kids. And during COVID, we had to go to completely on Zoom, right? And so I really was grappling with how do I make this event authentic for 200 young people and their caring adults that are going to be watching on the screen. And the theme was owning our stories. And so Alice offered to share about Anne. And when I tell you that on that Zoom call that day, with over 250 people present, and Alice being vulnerable and warm and sharing about Anne, it then gave a young person, a young woman, the courage to share about being in recovery from an eating disorder, which then gave another young person the room to share about something personal that was going on in their life. And it was one of the most powerful things I have ever experienced. And I don't know if you've ever been on Zoom before, but it is not wrought with powerful moments, right? But in that moment, all of us, everyone who was on that call was like, wow, that was Alice. Another thing, I had just gotten custody back of my children after a very long court battle. And it was during COVID, and a very tired nurse sideswiped me, totaled my car. And Alice gave me her Subaru for $1 to make it legal. I didn't have to ask. She just gave me the car so that I could make my appointments, make my custody appointments, and eventually get my children back. Yeah. And moreover, my little girl, my little now 11-year-old girl, she had a birthday in March of 2020, right? Everything had shut down, and my little 4-year-old, who I was desperate to just be a good mom for, right? Because I had spent so long just not being a great mom. And so my little girl was so desperate to have a birthday party, and you know what Alice did without even me asking? She set up a massive scavenger hunt. A massive scavenger hunt at Floodbrook School. And BK, my little girl, still says that's the best birthday she's ever had. And finally, because Alice was a little cheeky, this is a funny one. I coach lacrosse. And so at the end of our lacrosse season, I like to have a piñata party where the girls shoot at the goal and they hit the piñata. Yay, everyone gets candy, right? And so the first year that I did it, it was in June, and I wasn't even thinking. But I got a piñata that was rainbow, but it was the poop emoji. And so I didn't even really think of it. And then I was like, Alice, is this okay? Like, is it okay if I do this? And she very calmly and compassionately looked at me, and she said, no. No. So I got a new piñata. So many times, Alice just quietly and compassionately, I'm in charge of host, I don't, massive events where I would look at the space at Riley Rink, which is just so massive compared to this room, and not know how to be able to approach it, to fill things, to fit things where they're supposed to go. And she just had a way of seeing the whole picture, right? Of like looking at things from up above, seeing everything, seeing the people and what people needed and how to arrange things spatially, and when to kindly and compassionately say no. But also, she said yes a lot more than she ever said no. And it was quiet, and it was altruistic. And I hope you know Alice. But I would not be where I am today. I would not have custody back of my children. I would not have the core memories of my little girl running amok at Floodbrook School, forgetting COVID and the world and all the scary things that we went through in March of 2020 with just a simple scavenger hunt, $1 for a car so that I could get to my appointments, get to my court dates, and be there for my children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I think here comes someone else who's going to speak about our dear Alice.
So our dear Alice, I don't have as many personal memories, but I felt I needed to say this. My name is Kathy O'Reilly. I am the public health nurse supervisor for the Vermont Department of Health in their Bennington district office. Alice was a fierce advocate for the LGBTQ population, especially youth in southern Vermont. And I have to say, especially in Bennington County, because I've been working in Bennington County since 2012 in that same office. And thinking all the time, what is going on with like LGBTQ issues down here? And there was a lot going on up in Chittenden County, but Bennington, there wasn't a whole lot. Anyway, to make a long story short, my son moved up here to go to nursery school. My son is transgender. And when he came here from Washington, D.C., he was feeling a little like a fish out of water and actually fearful. Believe it or not, fearful. And Alice, this is where a lot of LGBTQ advocacy through our district office started. Using the collaborative partnership, moving on with DARE, Channing of ACT, and it was seriously due to Alice because she connected with me. She made things happen, introduced me to PFLAG. I started going to meetings, and I just felt I had to say that because really, honestly, she was a catalyst for a lot of the work that we are doing as a district office and what our coalitions are doing in Bennington County now with regard to this incredibly, as we can see now, especially marginalized population. So I just felt I had to say that.
Thank you so much. Alice really was a champion for so many of us. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right. Well, in that case, Alice's wife, Christina.
Hi, everybody. We are all sad and suffering today, but it wouldn't be, it's hard for me to get up here, but I just am so happy about the amount of people that knows Alice like I do, for sure. We've been together 30 years. Some of you know her a few before we met. However, I just want to thank my brother-in-law Ted and all the people that have come up here and spoke so fondly of Alice. Because she was, and what everybody said, and believe me, I know because I lived it. But I want to give a special thanks to the Vermont Fire and Rescue Department, who at least twice, 5 years ago or so, and again, sadly, on June 8th, came immediately to take care of Alice, and within minutes, she was helicoptered to Dartmouth Hospital, where she got the best care in the world, for sure. But I wanted to give a special thanks to that department. I also want to give a special thanks to the collaborative who 5 years ago, when Alice did have a bad accident and broke her neck, they were so kind to Alice and to us. And I really have to thank the whole community, as Alice was on the library board and the Historic Society and God knows what else. But it warms my heart to hear the amount of people who have experienced Alice as I have for the past 30 years. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to my wonderful sons.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I've had the pleasure of having 3 parents in my life. I was raised by my father, my mother, and who came to be known as my wicked stepmother. You guys would call her Alice. A whole bunch of legendary stories, and I I've been thinking about from the first celebration to now. We said some stuff, and some people made a comment on it. And I've been thinking a lot about who Alice was and what she was to me and that kind of stuff. And is that her progression through our family, the mark she's left on us, how it's changed. Listen to a bunch of stuff people said. Vermont is special, so is Boston. I've unfortunately had to go through 5 family deaths. Like it's been a string. Our family's been beaten with sorrow, sadness, and unfortunate premature death. And every one of those times, communities have come together. This is special. This happens in a lot of places. Thank God that's the world we live in. She'd have hated this. She'd have hated this. She'd have loved that first hour of us all eating and talking and being with each other. She'd have hated this. And a few of us that loved her and had the privilege of calling her family members would have said, too bad. We're gonna love you how you loved us. I had no problem talking back to my stepmother. I had no problem standing up to her when she couldn't bully her loving, caretaking way over the top of us sometimes to get it her way, because she was gonna get some love back. Because she gave us so much. You've heard it all day long. She enjoyed and gained great pleasure from caretaking people. She got great pleasure in doing for others. And hopefully that legacy gets passed on to a bunch of people. Like that should be her legacy. There's a second half of that story about the union. She got walked out of her room, and Lil did a whole lot of people know. She trained the next union person that was going to be a jerk and stand up and fight back for those people. I know that because he's my brother. Like she left, she spread it like an infection. One of the things is I've thought about it. I'm not from this society. I'm not from this niche of the world. I never fell in love with Jamaica, Vermont. I appreciated its beauty. I knew it was this special place for my moms. It wasn't my special place. Mine's on another bridge and another mountain up the street because that's where my loved ones were and where this place was. But it occurred to me that no matter where she went, Alice didn't do that thing about, hey, look at me. She didn't burst in and need attention to the thing she was claiming. She just showed up and was Alice, and that was good enough to affect those around her. It was a step. It was a step that made those around her accept what she was selling in a way better way than confrontation. Because she was overtly, independently, and without care for others' reaction to her herself. If you interacted and met Alice Abraham in Cambridge, you met Alice Abraham in Vermont, in DC, or in Popham Beach, you met the same person. Maybe at different times in her life, maybe at different times of the growth of her personal experience, but you met the same lady. And in a world where independence, where individualism is punished, where even on your own side of the tribe, if you don't buy in 100%, you're sometimes not welcome. She was just her. That's something really special. That's something that affected our family and rubbed off on a lot of us. A lot of the people in my family were affected, and I know that our family was better because Alice Abraham was a part of it. That I just know. Like, I know that. I know I said it. I don't really remember my mom being a very happy person before Alice, but I know damn well she was always happy after she met Alice. That's the shit that matters. Some of the details don't matter. Like, that's it. It's awesome to see, like, who she was. It's awesome to have experienced her. And I just hope I live up to some of that stuff. That's all. just hope I live up to some of that stuff. But the other job is to say thanks. Thanks on behalf of my family for coming here. Thanks on behalf of participating in all of this. Thanks on behalf of pissing her off. Because if there's a spirit somewhere that she's furious, she's complaining to my brother and to her others that she's sitting there. She's with her sister going, I wish she set the smoke alarms off this morning. We fixed them and they came back on again. We wrap this up because families have traditions and all traditions are meant to be broken and stuff. And I'm really sure I was going to take us across the line because I loved Alice because Alice was my mom's wife. Alice was my brother's stepmother. Alice was like a mom figure to my brother, and he's supposed to end this. So, shout out.
I'd like to again thank everybody for coming and you know what? I didn't want to come here today. I'm tired of grieving, and then I said, that was early this morning, then I said, it's not about you, dummy. And it's about Alice, and you know, something very special, like when they got together, it wasn't easy for us, you know, it was new city kids, a little messed up. We were just getting sober, a couple of us, you know, so it was very shocking, and what's going on, and how do you handle it? And how we handled it was just being a family. And then Alice, you know, right from the beginning, not easy, and it was always special to me. We could get in a confrontation, and it couldn't even be mean. It would never be anything. It would just be, like everybody said, the most selfless person that I've met. You know, I've met a lot of selfless people. I've been helped by a lot of people, but selfless is the word. You know, and she always looked out for me a little special. You know, if I was having confrontation with my mom, not confrontation, but if things weren't perfect, Alice always give me the nod or the link or the phone call. I mean, not even a strong, long sentence or anything, just a nod, like I got you, you know what I mean? And I did the same for her. And as I got older and my life got better, and I did the same for her. And it's funny, I wasn't gonna mention the union stuff or any real joking stuff, but Alice got me the job at Channel 2. You know, I was qualified, she got me the interview, and I worked there 17 years. And they used to joke around whenever she sent an email to get something fixed in the library, because they all knew they were married, and they'd say, oh, your dad needs something in the library. And the day she got walked out, I got a phone call. And they go, hey, they're walking your dad out of the building, you're gonna go over there. And I went over, and she was so happy to get walked out of the building. You know what I mean? And I took over the union after she left, and they were gonna break us the year that I negotiated the contract. And I'd give them a little more, and I called Alice for counsel. You know, it was worth saving, and that union's still breathing. You know, I'm breathing heavy, but it's breathing. And now I'm in a different union, I would do the same thing. I'm grateful she was in my life. I'm grateful she was in everybody's life. And there's no real words, you know, everyone keeps saying the same thing. And it makes me, I was just thinking today different than the first one, you know, because I'm the guy, let's set it up, it's gonna happen here, it's gonna happen there, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And today I wasn't much involved, and I just had to sit there and listen, not really help and not be in control, and not easy for me. And I had to hear everybody, and I, you know, kept looking at my watch and kept thinking, because I didn't want to feel all the feelings yet. You know, it was the same way with my brother. And when it hits, it's not good. But the good thing is that, like, I just want to thank one more time this community for how they've embraced Alice and my mom, and how you've taken care of my mom in the last couple of months. And we wouldn't be the same without you. You know what I mean? And my Patrick's life would be way different if they didn't have the support that they have. And that's what Alice would do. You know, Alice would help someone without asking, over and over and over again. You didn't have to worry about her saying no, because you didn't even have to ask. If she knew something was wrong, doesn't matter who you were, what community you were in. If something happened, she heard something bad, she'd bring something over, or help you out, or do this, or do that, what do you need? And that's the truth. Not too many people get to live that social. And we have a tradition now, which I hate to call it a tradition, but a lot of people have been passing. And this poem was in my friend. My other brother passed away long ago, and his good friend died 18 years ago. And he was this big, tough biker guy, and everyone thought he was crass. You know, and he reached out and helped a lot of people in another community I'm in recovery. You know, and I got this crumpled up in his pocket. And we always put it on the flyer every year. Then we have the memorial motorcycle run for the people in our group that have passed. And this year, Ronald was on the flyer. In the first 10 years, it was at his house. You know, so it was tough. And so I'm going to read it and wrap this up. And I just want everybody to, you know, if you leave here, you know, the best way to remember Alice is go do something for somebody that didn't ask you. Go help somebody you don't even like the most, like them enough. Help the ones that need it. Tell one more quick story to that, and it has, I first got sober, and I was in a group of these tough, mean old timers, and they go, hey, you gotta drive that guy in the meeting for 6 months. You know, I had him like a year sober. I couldn't stand the kid. And he really wasn't a nice kid. And so I'm driving him for like 3 months, and it stunk. Every night I drove to me, drove back, drove to me. One of the other old timers after like 3 months pulled me and said, you know we're only kidding, right? You don't have to do you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And but it helped me. It learned me that it's not about what I feel when I'm helping somebody. It's about helping that person. Are you helping them so you feel better, or are you helping them because they need help? And Alex helped people because they needed help, period. So we'll end it with this. God Knows Best by Helen Steiner Rice, which I've been reading this for 20 years and just found out she wrote it. So give her the credit. Our Father knows what's best for us, so why should we complain? We always want the sunshine, but He knows there must be rain. We love the sound of laughter and the merriment of cheer, but our hearts will lose their tenderness if we never shed a tear. Our Father tests us often with suffering and sorrow. He tests us not to punish us, but help us meet tomorrow. For the growing trees are strengthened when they withstand the storm, and the sharp cut of a chisel gives the marble grace and form. God never hurts us needlessly, and He never wastes our pain. For every loss He sends us is followed by rich gain. And when we count our blessings that God has freely sent, we will find no cause for murmuring and no time to lament. For our Father loves His children, and to Him all things are plain. So He never sends us pleasure when our soul's deep need is pain. So whenever we are troubled and everything goes wrong, it's just God working in us to keep our spirits strong.
Thank you so much. There is actually one last thing that we have on our service today. And we opened with music because music was part of Alice's soul, and we're going to close with music. I'm going to call up Madeline Helzer. Oh, you're not. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to call up Terry. Terry Throckmorton is going to play Ave Maria, which is one of Alice's favorite songs. Once Terry has finished, I invite you to stay and mingle. There are still wonderful desserts, so no one needs to rush out. Please help yourself. And now let's hear Ave Maria.
It's going to be Bach, not the Gounod Bach.
I don't even know, but I'm going to let Terry do her magic.
Okay. I'm gonna do my best, that's all.
And I'm the paper here. I'll be the,
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mom said you can play an Irish song.
My God. Can you unplug that? It's really hot. Oops, continue. Be safe.
All right, Miss Allen.